Years ago, I was still a child who loved spending summer evenings outside with my friends. I live in a small village in Eastern Europe where not much happens and everyone knows each other. Most of the houses are clustered together in one area along a country road. However, on the very edge of the village, on a hill about 300 meters from the road, in all the other houses, there is a lonely one, without doors, without windows. I didn't pay much attention to it until I was 15, even though my friends and I often passed the narrow overgrown path that led up to it when we were going to play in the nearby field. It seemed like a simple house under construction. One day, however, my friend and I were passing by, and we started asking ourselves questions about it. We realized we had never seen anyone work on it and had no idea who the owner was. For as long as either of us could remember, it had been in the exact same unfinished state. When I got home, I asked my parents about the house, and although they had both lived here since they were little, neither of them could give me an answer. This piqued my curiosity even more. The next day, my friend and I started asking around the village. No one knew much. Some said the owner had died suddenly. Others figured he had moved to another country and abandoned it. It was certain that the place had a strange air about it, but we couldn't seem to get any satisfying information. So we moved on for the day and left to play football. We had to pass by the house on the way to the field, of course. It was like the place was taunting us. Hours later, we were about to go home because the sun was starting to set. Just as we got back on the road, we bumped into my friend's uncle, who was returning from his visit to the neighboring village about 7 kilometers away. He was very old, the oldest person in the village, and made this journey on foot as often as he could, claiming it kept him young. Realizing he might know something about that house, we asked him directly. There were 3 seconds of silence where the old man seemed scared and confused, like we had unearthed a terrible memory. He looked us in the eye and said, "Don't ever go there," then hurried away, leaving us with more questions than ever. On the way home, we had to pass that very house. We had done it hundreds of times, but that day it was different. As we were walking by, the house made a loud creaking sound. It was strange because the house had no doors or windows, just holes in the walls. So we assumed it came from that rotten board blocking off the entrance. We were curious yet scared, but curiosity won. Wanting to finally put it to rest, we slowly walked up the hill. As we got closer to the house, something felt off. The air got colder, even though it was still summer. Not freezing, but like a cold draft you feel when opening a cellar door. It was unnatural. We didn't talk anymore, not a word. When we reached the entrance, we pushed the rotten board aside. Inside, it was dead silent. No wind, no insects, nothing. The concrete walls were stained. The air smelled like mold and something else, something sweet, almost metallic, like old blood, but faint. We carefully stepped inside, our footsteps echoing slightly as we cast our phone flashlights into the darkness. I remember feeling like someone was watching me from one of the window holes. I felt certain we weren't alone, but I couldn't prove it. We moved from room to room, each blocked by wooden planks we either slid aside or stepped over. When we reached the last room, the air was so cold my skin prickled up. And then, there it was, on the floor near the middle of the room. A doll, old, dirty, missing one eye. At the same moment, my phone started ringing. I didn't understand how it was possible. I had 0 signal, as my connection was completely lost. But my phone was ringing, and on the screen it said, "Unknown." I froze. I showed it to my friend. He turned pale. I didn't even think to answer. I just declined. But a second after that, a sound fluttered the air, A long, low sigh. It didn't sound human, but it wasn't like an animal either. It sounded like it came from inside the walls, like someone was exhaling after holding their breath for years. We didn't hesitate for a second, and just remember both of us turning at the same time and sprinting, jumping through the nearest window opening, not even caring if we scraped ourselves on the way out. We didn't stop running until we were back in the safety of the village. My friend's house was closest, so we went there. Once we had time to calm down a bit, my friend's uncle came back into the house from bathing after his day of walking. He took one look at us and knew we had gone into the house. First, he scolded us for being stupid and not listening to him. Then he finally told us what he knew about the house. He said that a long time ago, a family had started building a house there. But then, there was a tragic accident inside it that killed their little girl. After her death, the house was abandoned, and no one knows what happened to the family. My uncle let us believe the house was cursed. That night, we believed him. However, since then, I tried to think of a more rational. Believed it. However, since then, I tried to think of a more rational explanation. Were animals hiding in there? Or even people? I can never say for sure. Sometimes I can't stop looking at that house. Every now and then, at night, I swear I see a glimpse of candlelight glowing in one of the windows. Then my own blank snuffs it out. No matter what, I've never stepped foot in that house since, and I never will.